Miss Erin. I am so excited that we have Audubon Sun Camp again today. We are learning how to be botanists this week, all part of being a summer urban naturalist, right? We were learning all about birds, now we're learning about plants, and since we only have a couple days left together, I want to see how much you remember from what we've already learned about plants, okay? So, the first question I have is, what is a plant? So tell somebody near you, or you can whisper it to me. What is a plant? Yeah, basically, so a plant is a living thing that grows in the earth, and it has roots, leaves, and a stem, okay? Usually, okay? So, for example, I've drawn a picture of a tree. Is a tree a plant? Yes, it is. It has roots growing under the ground. It has leaves growing up tall. And then this part of the tree is its stem. Of course, on a tree, we call its stem a what? A trunk, exactly, okay? So, you may have noticed I'm not on top of Audubon's roof today. I am out here in Patterson Park where we can search for all of these things. All right, so we have our tree, and there's lots of trees above me. It's pretty amazing. So, next question. Which part of a plant attracts pollinators? We learned about pollinators and how they like to come to plants, and plants really like for pollinators to come so that they can help them reproduce and make more plants. But what part of the plant attracts the pollinators? What part of the plant do the pollinators see and come to? Remember, we made our flower? Exactly. So the flower is the part of the plant that gets pollinated, specifically the pollen and the nectar that's inside the flower. Remember, we put some chalky dust in there to be our pollen. All right, so we know what plants are, we know that plants get pollinated, but very important question, what was plants' main superpower? Remember, there's something that only plants can do. No other living thing in the entire world has this superpower. Do you remember what it was? It was a big science word. It rhymed with photosynthesis. Photosynthesis? Yes, photosynthesis. So the sun's energy shines down to the earth, and the only living thing on the earth that can turn that energy into food are plants, okay? And it does that through this crazy chemical process involving sun, water, and carbon dioxide, all right? So that is an amazing superpower. And who relies on that superpower? The fact that plants can turn sun into food affects who? Everybody! Yes, everybody, all of us, and every other single living thing on the planet. So it's an amazing superpower, right? The plants photosynthesize, turning sun's energy into food, and then that food and energy is taken up by caterpillars when they eat the plants. And then what happens to those caterpillars and that energy? They get eaten by birds and the whole rest of the food web. And we even learned that people are also part of the food web. Without plants photosynthesizing and all of those other food web connections, we wouldn't be here. So that's a pretty amazing superpower. So here's where it gets kind of tricky. Now, this is our third day being botanists together, so we're about to get a little more advanced, okay? Put on that thinking cap if you need it. It gets a little bit tricky because even though I am out here in Patterson Park and I see tons of plants, lots of different kinds of plants of all different shapes and sizes. What about if you even looked out the window right now, or maybe you're outside? Do you see lots of plants around you? Yeah, it looks like an amazing green all-you-can-eat buffet for caterpillars and animals, right? Well, not so much. Everyone say, oh no! I know, there's an issue. It turns out caterpillars are kind of picky eaters. I know, are you a picky eater? Sometimes when you see food on your plate, you're like, wow, what's that? I don't want to eat that. It looks weird or it smells weird and I don't know what it is and I'm not gonna eat it. That's what a picky eater is. Caterpillars are kind of picky eaters, and here's why. Caterpillars evolved. They grew up over many generations of caterpillars eating the same kind of food. It's kind of like if you have a favorite food that your parent or someone you love makes for you. Can you think of a favorite food that someone you love makes for you? For me, since you asked, it's my mom's chili. Have you had chili before? It's kind of like soup with beans. So my mom's chili is so delicious, but when I first had it, I didn't think it was gonna be that good. I mean, it looks kind of gross because it's all brown and lumpy, and I knew that there were vegetables secretly hidden inside it. So I wasn't so crazy about eating the chili, but I grew up with it. My mom made it for me so many times that soon I learned to love it, and then it was all I wanted to eat. You might say I co-evolved with it, okay? Co-evolved means that we grew up together and now I kind of need it. That's kind of what it's like for caterpillars. They co-evolved with one kind of plant, meaning they lived here in the state of Maryland generation after generation after generation eating the same plant over and over and over, and now it is their favorite plant. So when they see a new kind of plant that they've never seen before, it's kind of like if your parent took away your favorite chili or whatever it is that you love to eat and swapped it for something else that you had never seen before from some exotic, faraway place in the world. You might look at that new food and think, what is that? Where's my chili? That's kind of what's happening with caterpillars. So here is a perfect example. There is a caterpillar called a monarch butterfly caterpillar. It turns into this butterfly. Have you seen this butterfly before? So this caterpillar only likes to eat one kind of plant. And that plant is called a milkweed. Milkweed. And I actually found some milkweeds here in the Audubon Habitat Garden in Patterson Park. Right here. This is milkweed. I know it's milkweed because if I carefully pick off a leaf, I'm being so gentle, and I'm doing this because I'm a professional. You should not go tearing the leaves off of milkweeds. I'm going to show you this. See that milky sap? Now I have it on my finger. So that's milkweed. And milkweed is the only plant that monarch caterpillars can eat. It's like the monarch caterpillar's chili. They grew up together over generation and generation and generation, millions of years, and they got really good at eating milkweed. And so, when the mother monarch butterfly is ready to lay her eggs, she flies around and looks for milkweed. And she will only lay her eggs on milkweed because she knows that when the egg hatches and the caterpillar comes out, it can only eat milkweed. If she laid her egg on a different kind of plant, the caterpillar would hatch and not be able to eat that plant. okay? It would be like having a brand new food put in front of you that you've never seen before, okay? So these plants that evolved with our local wildlife and caterpillars are called native plants. And native plants have the real superhero power of supporting our entire local food web. Every single place in the world has their own native plants. Here in Maryland, we have plants that grow and evolved here in Maryland. They've been here for millions of years. If you go to a different part of the world, even a different part of the country, let's say you go to the beach, they have different native plants there. And those plants are all connected to the caterpillars and therefore the birds and all the other living things in that place, okay? So, let's go back to our food chain, for example. Let's say the sun comes down to the earth. If you can hear a noise, friends, that's because I'm in the park and they're mowing the grass. So you might be able to hear the lawnmowers, but hopefully you can still hear me. I'll try to shout. The sun shines down on our plants. The plants turn that turn that energy into food, and then the caterpillar comes along. If it's a native plant and the caterpillar likes that plant, it will eat it. And then we know what happens after that. The bird comes along and eats the caterpillar, and the food chain goes on. But if that plant is not a native plant, it's called a non-native plant or an alien plant or an exotic plant, the caterpillar will see it and be like, I don't want to eat that. And it might not be able to find food, it might even die. And then what's going to happen when the bird comes along? Bird can't find any caterpillars to eat? Not good. Not good, right? So let's dig into our camp kit for today so that we can see what we can do about this and how we can make sure that the world is better. We're also going to go on a really awesome adventure today and try to explore and find some cool plants. Hopefully you'll be able to do the same somewhere where you are. So, you are going to be looking for your kit that says number 7, okay? The only thing in your kit this week is a brand new Audubon Adventures magazine. That's all that you need for camp today because nature will hopefully be everything that you need, okay? So take out your Audubon Adventures from your kit. It's the one that says, plants are for the birds. And look at that bird right on the cover of your Audubon Adventures. That's a bird called a chickadee, and look what's in its mouth. Exactly what we were just talking about. Yes, that chickadee needs those caterpillars in order to eat. Have you ever tried to eat a caterpillar? They're really good. I'm just kidding. You probably shouldn't try to eat a caterpillar, but they're great for birds because they're full of protein, and that's what we need to make us strong. And that's what birds need to help make them strong and help to fuel their migration. Remember what migration is, right? Yes. So let's take a look at our Audubon Adventures magazine. We're gonna open it up to the center, okay? So I see a picture of a bird here called a goldfinch, and it's on a native plant called a coneflower. And then over here on the side is a section that says Caterpillar Math, okay? Caterpillar Math, a tale of 2 trees. So when we read this little section called Caterpillar Math, it's going to help us understand why native plants are so important for our food web, okay? So let's take a look and read together. It says, scientists have discovered that more than 550 different kinds of butterflies and moths lay their eggs on native oak trees. So in addition to monarch caterpillars, there are many other types of caterpillars, and over 550 different kinds lay their eggs on oak trees. I just want to show you for a second. Don't get sick or nauseous, but I'm gonna tip up the camera. Do you see these trees above me? Those are actually oak trees. So that's a really awesome thing, because 550 different kinds of butterflies and moths lay their eggs on native oak trees, and there are more than 50 different species of native oaks in the US, in the United States. When those eggs hatch into caterpillars, that many kinds of birds feed to their young in the spring, okay? So 550 different kinds of butterflies lay their eggs on oak trees, and when all of those eggs hatch, that means tons and tons and tons of caterpillars, and then birds will feed those caterpillars to their babies. On the other hand, here's where the math comes in. Only 5 kinds of butterflies and moths lay their eggs on ginkgo trees. Now, ginkgo trees are very beautiful, and people love to plant ginkgo trees because they're so pretty. But only 5 different kinds of butterflies and moths lay their eggs on ginkgo trees compared to 550 different kinds on oak trees. So like over 100 times more caterpillars on oak trees than on ginkgo trees. What do you think would happen to native birds if all of our native oak trees were replaced by ginkgo trees? So if our oak trees here in Patterson Park were removed and we planted ginkgo trees instead, would there be enough caterpillars for all of our birds to live? Probably not. There would be 100 times fewer caterpillars, which probably means there would be 100 times fewer birds and all of the other kinds of animals that eat insects too, okay? If you look at the next page of your Audubon adventures, you'll see milkweed at the bottom. Well, we're already an expert on that plant, but check it out. It says, so in addition to feeding our monarch caterpillars, milkweed, oh look, it says what we just learned. Milkweed attracts many insects, especially caterpillars of the monarch butterfly. We already knew that. And then the birds also use the puffy milkweed seed pods to make their nests. So after these milkweeds are done blooming, they'll form these seed pods, and inside is all this fluffy stuff, and the birds actually use all that fluff to put in their nests and make them nice and soft. Isn't that cool? And it says goldfinches weave the milkweed threads into their nest. So native plants are used by all kinds of different animals. They're so important. That's their major superpower. Okay? Let's turn to, there's some different things to read here. You can read about them later, but let's turn to the very back of your Audubon adventures. It says native plant and native bird search. So, come along with me. We're going to go on a scavenger hunt. You know what a scavenger hunt is? Okay. We're going to look and listen and try to find some of the different things on this list. Now, you're gonna come along with me and see what I find, and then hopefully later you can take your list and try to find some things wherever you are. See how there's some little check boxes next to each item on the list? If you take a pencil or a crayon or something with you, you can check off things as you find them. What you shouldn't do is collect the things that you find on the list and take them home with you. Why not? There's a thing on my list that says a seed or a nut. If I find a seed or a nut, should I take it home with me? Probably not, but why not? Yeah, we're talking about food webs and how all the different animals are connected. If I take this seed, look, I just found some. If I take this seed home with me, then it can't be food for an animal. I'm taking away their food, and this seed might grow into a new tree. And that would be so cool. But I can check it off my list and then put it right back where I found it. All right, friends, I'm gonna collect some of my materials so that we can go on our scavenger hunt. I don't wanna leave a mess in the park, so I'm tidying up. And as soon as we're done exploring, I'll come and pick all these things up and take them home with me. Okay. I have my list. I have my clipboard so I can write things down. All right, let's go. Okay, the first thing on my list says a plant with a flower. So I'm here in the Audubon Habitat Garden. I don't see any flowers yet, so let's keep looking on our list. A plant with no flowers. Well, I see lots of those. Ooh. This plant is called a spice bush. Look, I just found an insect on it. There's a lightning bug. I was going to say this plant is a really cool plant. It's called a spice bush. If I rub the leaves and smell them, they smell kind of spicy. I love that smell. And look, we found something else from our list. It's actually a lightning bug. Have you seen any lightning bugs yet this year? Okay, so we found a plant with no flowers, and we found an insect or other bug on a plant. There's some questions here that we can think about. What does the insect look like, and what is it doing? Well, it seems to be resting, which makes sense, because when do lightning bugs like to come out? Yep, they come out at night, which means what do they do during the day? Yep, they sleep. I should probably... Yeah, it's a nocturnal insect. We're just gonna let that insect sleep. Oh my goodness, we already found 2 things on our list. Well, and I found that seed nut thing earlier. So we really found 3 things. Okay, let's keep going. A shrub or a bush, not a tree, that is taller than you. Well, what about this thing? This is definitely taller than I am. This is a plant called an elderberry. An elderberry bush, and look. Can you see its flowers? And then they'll turn into berries. So can I check off berries from my list too? A fruit or a berry? Which plant tree do you think it came from? Well, I just told you, it came from an elderberry. Oh, here's another one from our list. So one of our items says a tree that has needles instead of leaves. Do we know what needles are? So instead of the broad leaf of the elderberry, it looks like this. This tree has needles. This tree is called a cypress tree. And look. It has these weird looking things that will eventually turn into cones. Kind of like a pine tree has cones, except This is a cypress tree, so it's a little bit different. Okay. Check. What else should we search for? Well, the list says a bird. I hear lots of birds. Do you think we could find one? What else is on our list? The tallest tree. Whoa. What about those trees back there behind me? I think those might be the tallest trees in this park. Check! Have we found a plant with a flower yet? Oh, a seedling or a sprout? I'll have to look for that. Do you know what a seedling or a sprout is? It's like a little baby plant. So here's a good example. I have to come down to the ground. That's where the seedlings and the sprouts are. So this is actually a tree. I can tell from its leaves. It's called a maple. But this is just a little baby. It's only a couple feet tall. I'm looking around for its parent, but I don't see a big maple tree. Oh, maybe that one over there. So there we go. There's a seedling or a sprout, a baby tree. I found the mother lode of the flowers. There are tons of flowers here. There's also another lawnmower coming. What are you gonna do? Oh my goodness. Look at all these flowers. And exactly like I said, where there are flowers, there are pollinators. All of these flowers are attracting all of the pollinators. I see so many bees and butterflies. That is a great thing, because that means they will pollinate the flowers, help those flowers turn into seeds so that they can make more flowers. Look, these are already turning into seeds. Can we see? So this flower has already bloomed. Hopefully it got pollinated. And now all of these little things are seeds. And so when these seeds go down to the ground, hopefully they'll sprout and turn into more flowers. All right, let's take a look at our list. Have we found everything? I'm gonna try to put my camera down without dropping you on the ground. Let's see. Thanks for coming along on this adventure with me. I wasn't really sure what we would find, but we found so much. Did we find a plant with a flower? Yes, we did. What color is the flower? What shape is it? You can ask all of these different questions. Did we find a plant with no flowers? Yes. And we also found some that had buds. We found a seed or a nut, a fruit or berry. That one might be kind of tricky. You'll have to find a special kind of plant that has berries. But we did see the elderberry plant that will eventually turn into berries. We found a shrub or a bush that's taller than me. We found a seedling. We found a tree with needles instead of leaves. We found a really tall tree. A plant you think is a weed. You know what, we didn't do that one, but here's what I want you to do. In your Audubon adventures, if you turn to this page with the birdhouse on it, there is some information to read about what is a weed and what is not a weed. Basically, a weed is just a plant that you don't want growing there. So right now there's some grass growing in here that I don't really want it to be here because when I have classes in here with kids, I want the ground to be clear around their feet. So this is something I would consider a weed because it's growing here in the Audubon Habitat Garden and I don't want it there and I didn't plant it there. So that would be a weed. Let's see, we heard a lot of birds. Hopefully you'll find some birds, and we found that lightning bug, the most common kind of plant or tree in the area. That's something you will have to look for and see. Hi friends! You're fine, we're making a summer camp video.
Oh, are you doing like a live stream or is this, I don't want to like...
It's not live, it's a video for later, but either, no worries. Okay. That's completely expected and part of the experience.
Gotcha. Have fun.
Thank you. So wherever you're on your scavenger hunt, take a look around at all the plants and see what's the most common thing. That means the thing that you see the most. So I see lots of these yellow flowers. That's a very common thing. All right, here's one more thing that you can do later. If you have a device or you can borrow a device from a grown-up, there's a really cool app I want to tell you about. And this app is going to help you to be a community scientist. Just like when we were identifying birds and learning how to share our data with scientists, you can do that as a botanist also. You can learn about plants. So this app, I don't know if you'll be able to see, is called Seek, S-E-E-K. And the Seek app is a really cool app for finding plants. Because if you use your camera in the Seek app and you point it at a plant, it will tell you what kind of plant it is. It says this plant is called false sunflower. So look, I took a photo. It tells me false sunflower. So now I know what kind of plant it is. That is so cool. And it will keep track of my data. So now it says I observed a new species, false sunflower. I can view the species. Oh, it tells me all about it, and it tells me where it lives, and it tells me other similar species that look kind of like it. It's a really cool app, and the best part is it will keep track of all the plants you found and share all of that data with scientists so that you can be a community scientist. And you know, it's only by collecting our data and sharing our information that we will know how to protect all of our native species, all of our local native plants, which we know support the rest of our food web. So friends, we had so much fun exploring together. At least I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too. We only have one more day of sun camp together, and I really hope you turn in because we're gonna learn how to save the world. Yes. All right, friends, I'll see you then. Have fun, be safe. Bye.